Let me take you back to the work that the Society does in tropical rainforests. In 1979, I was starting on a big television series called Life on Earth. I had written a program about apes and explaining how, in fact, the opposition of the thumb and forefinger, which apes had developed in order to grip on branches, how this was a key thing in human evolution, because it enabled, if you could do that, you could hold a tool. And if you could hold a tool, you could move into a completely different world. And so I wanted to do that, and I thought I'd do it with chimps. And the producer said, not at all. There's a woman in the Congo who's been working with gorillas, and she has habituated them. We can do it with her. And I said, you're mad. Diane Fossey is a famous character at the time, and a very, very vigorous and rather alarming woman, to be truthful. I said, she'll never agree. And John said, well, we'll write to her. So he wrote, and much to my surprise, we got a letter back saying, yes, she would see us, and she would introduce us to her gorillas. So John and I and the camera crew and sound crew, we flew out to Rwanda. She took us out and introduced us to the gorillas. Now, when I say introduced us, I wasn't aware that he had introduced us. What had happened was that we followed her, and the gorillas in the thickness of the forest knew exactly where she was and could see us, though we couldn't see them. And we sat down in a clearing and had something to eat, specifically so that the gorillas could see that we were friends with Diane. And then we went back to camp. And it was a long day. It's high, it's wet, it's cold. And for the days that followed, we went off with Ian Redmond. And it was then that I had an extraordinary encounter, which I suppose, certainly of any film I've ever taken, has been shown many, many more times than anything else, in which I crawled towards gorillas and was prepared to say something to camera. And I felt a hand on top of my head, and I turned around and there was this huge female gorilla. And she twisted my head round, and then she took her forefinger, huge, great forefinger, and opened my mouth and poked into my teeth. And I was... I suppose I was in bliss, really. I mean, it was certainly one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life. That you had suddenly be aware that a totally wild animal had accepted you. And later on, we did all the stuff with the thumb and forefinger and all that. And I went to say a goodbye after we'd been up there for a week or whatever it was. And Diane made me promise that I would do something about gorillas, that I would do what I could to raise support. So when I came back, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to get in touch with this society, with John Burton, who was then the secretary of the society. And I rang up John and said, what can we do? And he immediately, as the society does operate, he immediately put things into action. And the society raised a very great deal of money. And it was John Burton, therefore, and the society that was responsible for the gorilla funds that are now proceeding and are pretty effective.
Indeed, it was that John set up the Mountain Gorilla Project, and it was John's sort of vision around not just protecting the forest by putting a fence around it, but really by habituating the gorillas, by building on tourism revenues to do that. And it's been successful because of that. And it's taken us 20 years to get this, but it is a monumental piece of work, in so much as now all three governments, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and Uganda, all of whom have mountain gorillas, have signed an accord to conserve them into the future. And that was only signed about 3 weeks ago. So that's a really big plus for us.